The art and design world was in ornamental mode from the classical period. Only in the early 20th century did we have design pieces that started to look purely functional. Imagine yourself in that period. It would be a strange time. Some of the most progressive minds in art and design would denounce the use of ornamental elements. But it is not easy to let go of the tradition that had been going on for millennia. The early 20th century was the time when the Art Deco movement was in full blown. The movement introduced a compromise between austere vision of the future and ornamental tradition of the past. In the wash world, the expression on the dial starts to get more geometrical. The sector dial was one of the ways to express this change in design language in the art of watchmaking. The pieces that exemplify this style include Patek Philippe 1436, Vacheron Constantin 4075, and Rolex 2508. Most of these pieces are far beyond the reach of majority of watch collectors. The piece we are talking about today follows the design trend of sector dial from the 30s and 40s, with clever fusion of mechanical movement available today and the design vocabulary of almost 100 years ago. This Baltic Bicompax achieves the look of the 1930s based on today's technology. The case is enlarged from the real vintage sector dial piece to appeal to the standard of today without overdoing, as seen in the comparison with my Baume Mercier Vintage 1, which is a simply time-only piece with small second. The dial finishing varies in each of the sector, from smooth and matte to rough to machine-concentric round pattern in both of the sub-registers. The markers and all the printing on the dial are done with subdued gray tone. The minute and hour hands are long, slim and graceful with polished stainless steel. Chronograph's second hand stands tall and handsome. The pumping button is smooth and responsive. Big sign crown complements nicely to the case. Bead of rice bracelet, original from Baltic, stylistically matches the piece, although it comes with additional cost. The bracelet has easy change spring bars, mule clasp, and sign buckle. The middle 5 small links are polished and play nicely with light. The outer links on both sides are brush finish. Dual lugs are long and expansive, without curving down to hug the wrist. Maybe it is because the designer wanted the piece to have more presence on the bigger wrist. There are just a few things that I would think will improve this already nice creation. The first is legibility. The combination of subdued gray markers and printing on dark gray dial achieves vintage looks, but the contrast is compromised. In some lighting condition, it will not be very legible. It would be better if they incorporate more tonal difference in the color of printing, rather than utilizing only line weight to differentiate information on the dial. Anyway, if legibility is the important issue for you, just go with the white dial option. The reason I chose black dial is that it is way harder to find decent real vintage dark dial chronograph within a limited budget. The second issue for me is how they design the step bezel. Most vintage pieces would have the edge of the bezel flush with the side of the case, or maybe a step case that is rounded out. The one on this piece seems to stuck somewhere in the middle. I prefer them to go with either way, like the classic examples. The third thing is that either tachymeter, telemeter, or pulsometer would be a great addition to the overall look of the dial. Because with modern sized watch, you have the dial area much larger than vintage ones. But again, the functional reason would be redundant today, because very few will ever be using this chronograph function to seriously time the speed, distance, or pulse in real life. So this question is purely a design decision. Whether you want a simplified version of 1930s watch or the full expression of the era, which I respect the designer's choice to go with the simplified dial. With all these issues discussed, I still think it is a great piece to pick up if you'd like to spot the look of the early 20th century chronograph without costing a fortune, which is actually the essence of most of micro brands. People want a good watch with reliable movement that can represent the sense of style with a reasonable price tag. All the other nitty-gritty works, they can do it easily with their smartphone.